Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm testing out the Meeden soft oil pastel kit and creating an expressive landscape sketch inspired by a reference photo. This set was very kindly gifted to me by Meeden in exchange for an honest review, and I'm really excited to dive in, mainly because this box is huge. Let's start by unboxing it and taking a closer look at what's inside. Inside the kit, you'll find a really generous selection of materials. There's a set of 72 soft oil pastels, plus 6 extra white pastels, which is always a bonus. You also get 3 blending sponge pens, each with a different shaped sponge tip, 3 palette knives, 5 finger covers for blending, masking tape, 10 sheets of oil pastel paper, a cutting mat, and even a picture frame so that you can present a finished piece of art. Everything comes neatly packaged inside this portable carry case, which has 2 layers, and each item is individually wrapped. I'm really impressed with the presentation. You can tell that a lot of care has gone into making sure everything is protected, organised and easy to find. It's not the most sustainable approach to packaging, as there is quite a bit of plastic wrap which I've already removed, but it does feel very much like a luxury gift. Every item has its own dedicated space, which is perfect if, like me, you tend to put things away and then forget where you've put them. Taking a closer look at the oil pastels themselves, the set includes 72 colours, and straight away I can see some beautiful shades that will work perfectly for landscape work. There's a lovely range of earthy tones, plenty of greens, and some really nice blues that will be ideal for skies and water. If you're interested in purchasing a kit for yourself or a friend, there's a link to the product in the description box below, and you can use my code KateLouise to get a 12% discount. The paper included in the kit is smooth and a good thickness, so I'm really curious to see how it handles blending, layering and palette knife techniques. I'm especially interested because I don't usually work on smooth paper with oil pastels. I tend to prefer something with a bit more tooth for the pastel to grip onto. I've taped down the edges of the paper with the masking tape provided, just to create a clean border and frame the piece. I like doing this because it gives me a clear boundary to work within and a clean edge at the end. So I'm starting by blocking in areas of colour, and I'll pop the reference photo that I'm using on the screen so you can see what I'm working from. The pastels don't have colour names, they're numbered instead, so it's a little tricky to describe the exact shades that I'm using, but I'm starting by lightly blocking in the main areas, beginning with a pale grey blue for the water. For this first layer, it's important to really work the pastel into the paper so that later layers sit nicely on top. I'm going to test out the sponge blending pens here, and there are 3 included in the set. I'm starting with this wedge-shaped one, which works well for blending larger areas. You can also blend using the palette knives by lightly scraping the pastel across the surface of the paper. There are again 3 different knife shapes in the kit, and I'm sticking with the one I'm most familiar with. At this stage I'm using very little pressure and working quite loosely across the surface. Even with a light touch, the pastels are incredibly soft and creamy, so they're transferring a good amount of pigment straight away. I really like working in layers like this, starting with a thin base layer and gradually building up thicker, more expressive marks on top. It's very similar to how I approach painting, and I'll often finish with heavier, almost impasto style details. I'm not thinking about detail too much at all, just large areas of colour and the overall structure of the scene. This first layer gives me something to respond to as I build up the piece. point, I'm continuing to block in colour and adding a few heavier marks as reference points, just to help me work out the placement of elements within the composition. As I move into the land, I'm layering earthy greens, muted browns, and softer neutrals. I'm letting the colours overlap and interact, rather than keeping them separate. Oil pastels are wonderful for this. The colours blend naturally just through pressure and layering. I love incorporating areas of heavier texture into my oil pastel work, so I'm starting to build up thicker layers in the foreground. By blending and scraping with the palette knife, the colours merge really nicely. I'm also scratching in a few vertical marks to suggest grasses, which adds movement and texture to the piece. Rather than blending everything perfectly, I'm allowing some broken colour to show through. These uneven marks add energy and movement, and they stop the work from feeling too tight or controlled. I'm actually really impressed with how the smooth paper performs. The pastels sit beautifully on the surface, they blend easily, and the paper hasn't gone fuzzy at all, even after blending and scraping. It's also holding up really well to the palette knife techniques.
I was on fire, our house, our dreams. We were dancing on a wire, reckless it seemed. We found holes in these walls, we like what we saw. Seems so strong until it falls, the final straw. Oh, I never felt like this before. Oh, when I was trapped, you showed an open were dancing on a wire. Yeah, we were dancing on a wire.
Here I'm warming up the sky slightly with a soft cream yellow pastel, along with some deeper blue-grey tones to hint at clouds. This helps to break up the sky and adds a bit more depth and atmosphere. Adding the subtle warmth into the sky with that soft pastel breaks up the cool tones and suggests shifting light. Small changes like this can really transform the atmosphere. I continue adjusting the values, deepening shadows, and adding some contrast where needed, always being careful not to overwork the surface. Overall, I think this Meeden soft oil pastel kit is a really solid option, especially if you're interested in getting started with oil pastels. It includes everything you need in one place, and the presentation makes it a fantastic gift, either for yourself or another artist friend. What I really like about this kit is that it allows you to experiment straight away. You can try blending, layering, scraping, and different mark making techniques without needing to buy anything else separately. The oil pastels themselves are soft, creamy, and highly pigmented. Even with light pressure, they lay down a good amount of colour, which makes them ideal for expressive work. They blend really easily, whether you're using your fingers, sponge tools, or palette knives. The colour range is particularly well suited to landscapes. There's a strong selection of earthy tones, plenty of greens, and some really beautiful blues that work well for skies and water. The colours are numbered rather than named, which can make them slightly harder to reference. The oil pastel paper included in the kit is smooth and a good thickness. It holds up well to blending and palette knife techniques, and doesn't become fuzzy, even when worked over multiple times. If you prefer a lot of texture, you might still choose a different paper, but for soft oil pastels, I think this surface works very well. The accessories included in the kit don't feel like filler items. The sponge blending pens are genuinely useful for soft transitions, and the palette knives work well for scraping back layers and adding texture, especially in landscape work. Overall, I think the Meeden Soft Oil Pastel Kit is a great option, particularly if you're new to oil pastels or want a complete ready-to-use set. The pastels are good quality, the colour range is thoughtful, and the presentation makes it feel like a cohesive, well-designed kit. If you're interested in purchasing a kit for yourself or a friend, there's a link to the product in the description box below, and you can use my code KATELOUISE to get a 12% discount. For the final details, I'm going in with a pencil to add a few defining marks. The pencil lifts the oil pastel slightly, which makes it a lovely way to scratch into the surface and bring out highlights and fine details. These scratch marks are one of my favourite parts of working with oil pastels. They introduce spontaneity and keep the piece feeling expressive and alive. I like stopping before everything feels resolved, leaving some areas loose, which allows the viewer's eye to complete the scene, and this is a big part of expressive work. Now it's time to peel back the masking tape to reveal that clean border. I'm really happy with how this piece turned out, and I've loved testing out this kit. If you enjoyed watching this process or found the review helpful, please consider giving the video a like. It really supports the channel. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy working with oil pastels, or if there's another material you'd love to see me explore. And if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe for more expressive landscape sketching, art process videos, and creative inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.